Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Could you take your seats, please? We better get started because we have, again, another extremely interesting and packed day ahead of us. My name's Andrew Sixsmith. I'm director of the Gerontology Research Center here, and I'm here to welcome you all this morning. And I think I wasn't able to attend yesterday. I had a bunch of things that I had to do at the other campus, so I was very sorry that I wasn't able to attend yesterday. But I heard that it went extremely well, and it was extremely well attended. So I hope that today's session is equally good, and I'm sure it will be. I just wanted to say a few words, firstly about the topic of the conference, housing alternatives for an aging population. I've been doing research in the area of housing and homes for older people for many years, and sometimes it gets a bit frustrating because we seem to see some of the same problems occurring over and over again. So I thought I'd just summarize some of the key things that have emerged from many of the projects that I've done over the years, and just share some of these thoughts with you. The first point I'd like to make is that we hear a lot about the so-called burden of old age. You know, we hear that in the media all the time, that we've got so many older people in the population. What are we going to do about it? And particularly about the health problems of older people. But if we look at things in more depth, we find that many of the so-called problems of old age are actually not medical problems at all. They're to do with housing, having the right housing in place. They're economic issues. It's about providing the right supports in the community. They're going to help people to live at home healthily. When those are not in place, that's when many of the health problems that arrive in the emergency room occur. So really, having appropriate housing and the other sorts of community supports are really important. A second issue that we've got to think about is having the right services in the community to help people age in place. Even if people have nice housing and a good place to live, we still need services in the community to support them. By and large, and we see this around the world, community services tend to be inadequate. And I've seen statistics about here in British Columbia which suggest that community services have actually declined over the last 20 or so years, which is really a very unfortunate situation, given the emphasis that we seem to have. It's okay. Policy-wise, in terms of trying to help people to age in place. Other research that I've done has suggested that many of the services that are there to support people at home are often extremely bureaucratic to access. And actually, there are many barriers in getting the right services into people when they're at home, even when those services exist. So we've got to avoid these barriers that do exist. And this is something that I've seen in many healthcare systems and community services systems across the world. Also, most of our health services are really geared up to pick up the pieces after things have gone wrong. We definitely need more preventative approaches to supporting older people in the community. A third point, and this is a really important one as far as I'm concerned, is that a home is very much more than a house. And I think everybody would agree with that. And having a home is crucial to the psychological and social well-being of us all. Okay? If you didn't have a home to go back to today, I'm guessing you wouldn't be particularly happy. Having a place that we can call a home is important for self-identity. It helps us to maintain autonomy. It's a place which a person can be themselves or simply get away from the world. Not having a home is really an extremely significant issue. And that's one of the reasons why I'm trying to develop a research program here in BC on homelessness and seniors. So we need to develop policies and initiatives that can help people to remain in their own homes, in their current homes, or to find appropriate and affordable solutions. These are essential if we're going to be able to respond to the aging of our population in coming years. Okay, that's all I wanted to say this morning. I would like to introduce our first speaker this morning, which is Andrew Scharlach. Andrew is Professor of Social Welfare at the University of California at Berkeley. Is that right? Berkeley?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sometimes my Brit pronunciation gets things wrong. Where he holds the Eugene and Rose Kleiner Chair in Aging and directs the Gerontology specialization in the School of Welfare. I won't introduce Andrew anymore because he does not need any introduction, I don't think. Andrew, thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. Very good. So, from one Andrew to another. So, thank you very much. All right. You know, technology is highly overrated anyway. Yesterday was about moving. It was about what are the options for moving from our familiar homes to a new home, to a new place, and making that new place a home, providing it with a sense of meaning and everything that home involves. Today, all right, let me try pushing the on button. See if, oh, no, you've got that already.
I just called.
Yeah. You know, it's like when you call we used to call the television repairman, now we call the computer, we text the computer repairman or woman, and we say, you know, I've got this problem, it won't go on. Have you plugged it in? Have you pushed the red button? Yeah, all right, anyway, all right, here we are. Okay, so yesterday was about moving. Today is about staying. And what are some innovative ways to help us stay where we are and have that sense of place and connection that's so important to us? I appreciate the introduction. I won't say too much other than the fact that I direct something called the Center for the Advanced Study of Aging Services at Berkeley. We study advancements, innovations in terms of supports for and with older adults. We've done a number of projects related to this area of aging in place. I'll mention as I go along today a couple of those projects. We have an ongoing study that we've been doing now for, I think, 5 years, and we have probably another 3 years at least studying this concept called the villages, which I'll be talking about shortly. We've been studying some other community-based support programs that involve older adults and involve volunteers in supportive kinds of arrangements. And I'll tell you about some of the other initiatives too. A lot of the work that we've been doing is in the general area of aging-friendly communities, how to help communities become better places for all of us to live, and especially as we develop and change throughout our lives. I won't say too much about that. I'm hoping to kind of go through my sort of prepared talk relatively quickly so that we have plenty of time to talk together. So yesterday, as we're talking about where we can move to, and I was struck by Chuck Durrett's discussion about cohousing and the idea of living in a small community, a community of 30 or 40 or 50 people where you know one another, where you have privacy, but you also interact together, and where you move away from wherever you've been living to create a new community. And, well, I was on the phone last night talking to my wife about that. Actually, I was on Skype talking to my wife about that. And I've got this problem, really, and maybe you can help me, besides the marital counseling. So we've been living in the same house for 24 years. Now, I don't really particularly like the house. I never really have. It's one of these suburban American kind of neighborhoods, where you get in your car to go everywhere and you kind of wave to the neighbors. And I've interacted more with the neighbors when I've been walking my dog or when our kids have been playing together than anything else, except for the folks next door who we kind of helped out as they got older and needed some help. I'd like to move. Plus, we need to put a few $1,000s into landscaping, and I've got to pay a crew to come help with the gardening because it's more than we can handle and all that. I'm tired of all that. Here's my problem. My wife gets up early in the morning and goes for a walk almost every day, 6 days a week. 1 day off for good behavior. 2 of those 6 days, she and I walk together. The other 4 days, she walks with her friends who live on the block or around the corner every morning for 20-some-odd years. You walk, you talk, you share your war stories, you share your lives. You're there for each other in good times and in bad. When I go down to the big supermarket, I walk in and anybody who's been there for a while knows me by name. I know all of them by name. The guy who is who's a stock boy, who's from Peru, who was a physicist in Peru before he came to the United States, whose daughter just graduated from Berkeley, comes over and gives me a hug. Why does he come over and give me a hug? Because I know that he was a physicist and that his daughter graduated from Berkeley. There's a relationship. And I could go on and on. My barber, who I've had for 24 years, who just retired and moved up to his lake house. I don't know what I'm going to do. Anyway, but little things like that matter. And to give that up, to move somewhere else, even somewhere that's a better place to age in, perhaps, is a lot. To move away from family, to live somewhere else, is a lot. It's a lot to give up. It's a lot of change. Sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes it's not. It's important, I think, to have those options. But the reality is that, at least in the United States, 87%, plus or minus 5 or 6%, of older adults say they want to stay where they are. They want to stay in their own house, or at least in their own community, where they have these connections. So this happens to be a survey from AARP that was done a few years ago of adults, I think it was 50 and over. The number one thing that people want as they get older, to stay in their own homes and neighborhoods. They also want to be with friends and social networks, be able to get places they need to go, be safe, be healthy, be involved. What's interesting about this is that, I don't know about you, but pretty much everybody I know of any age wants this. This isn't just something that happens as you get older. Some of these things perhaps become more important. They're basic things that we want in our lives. And so the question is, how do we create our lives and create our communities so that we can have these things? Now, we talk a lot about aging in place. I want to suggest that a better term is aging in community. And much as I'd like to take responsibility for this, like Chuck Durrett yesterday, I'm going to give A little shout out to Bill Thomas, because it was really, at least he's one of the people who came up with this idea. There's a difference between aging in place and aging in community. Aging in place is about where your body is, basically. It's about where you physically are and how to help you stay there. It's about getting your needs met. It's about services that come to you, usually, to help you stay where you are. Aging in community is about who you are in the world. It's about not just being able to physically stay in place, but to be socially connected, to be more of a full person. It says that as we get older, just as earlier in life, it's important to have a social world that's meaningful and that is not just about social support and meeting our needs, but is about mutuality and interdependence and mutual responsibility. Because one of the things that community involves is both giving and taking. It's being part of. It's that sense of mutual responsibility. It also means that when we need help, it's not just that we are care recipients, but we are care partners. We have a responsibility not only to do the best job we can of taking care of ourselves, but also to work with other people to help us and to help them. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment or two. But just because of our age, it doesn't absolve us of the responsibility to contribute. It doesn't free us from the rewards of contributing, from the joy of waking up in the morning and feeling like there's a reason for us to wake up in the morning, that we have something to do with our lives. So what I want to talk about is a particular concept that's been sort of developed in the US and played out in about 4 other countries now. This village concept that builds on this idea. The basic logic behind it, I don't think I can figure out how to do this. Oh, no. Yeah, I knew that wasn't going to work. Okay. Hang on. Okay, we'll go back to this. I was looking for a pointer, and I can't figure it out. So, yeah, I'm afraid if I push the button, something bad is going to happen. Which one? The middle one. The push button thing? Ah! Thank you, Professor Gutman. Okay. So the basic idea here is that what we want to do is we want to maximize our own capacity, our own physical and psychosocial well-being, and maximize and optimize the capacity of the community, both the built environment as well as the social environment. Not just services, but also what we call social capital, the sense of trust that people have with one another, the sense of connection that people have with one another that takes time to develop. Right. So, the village concept. Now, first and foremost, what I have to say, which bothers me, is that the village concept, the village is not a village, which is to say, it's not a place. It's a concept. It's a virtual. Forget virtual. It's an idea, not a place. I don't like the name village. I've tried to change it, but the folks who kind of create it have told me forget it. So here we are. So the basic idea, and this happens to be from Salt Lake City. There's something very similar that was developed in Calgary a number of years ago called the Calgary Elder-Friendly Communities Project. Is about neighbors helping neighbors. It's about creating that sense of peer support and helping. This particular project and the one in Calgary involved a school of social work. I work at a school of social welfare, so I get to promote this a little bit. And involves students from the School of Social Work here and in Calgary who did some community organizing. They went into some lower income communities in Salt Lake City and Calgary, and they worked with the local residents to ask, what are some of the needs that people have, and how can we get together and work on solving those needs? In Salt Lake City, it had to do with trimming lawns and trimming hedges and mowing lawns and repainting and reshingling and whatever. In Calgary, it had more to do with shoveling snow and removing ice and, filling holes in the asphalt. But anyway, so it's about organizing people at the local level, and where the resources don't exist, bringing them in through some student labor or organizing volunteers or things like that. Now, this particular village model is really a model of senior membership associations. I'll tell you more about that in the next slide. But it's the idea of organizing older adults. Now, the first village that we kind of talk about anyway was in Boston, in the Beacon Hill neighborhood of Boston. Anybody here ever been to Beacon Hill neighborhood of Boston? A couple of people. Okay, so this is a very, very old part of Boston. It's all cobblestone paved. It's kind of on a hill, Beacon Hill. It's on a hill behind the State House. And it's probably one of the least aging-friendly environments you can imagine. Everybody's got stairs they've got to go up. The buildings are crammed one next to another. The pavers get wet and it's hard to walk on and whatever. But there was a bunch of seniors back in 2001 who got together, actually two of them, and then they invited their neighbors, and they said, I've lived here all my life. I don't want to move. But it's getting harder. I don't know what to do. And they said, well, what if we kind of get some of these young folks involved and see if they'll kind of take out the garbage for us or help us with some other things. And there's some things we can do for each other. If I'm going to the store, I'll get something for you. If you're going to the store, you get something for me. And Charlie, who lives downstairs, can't walk very well, so we'll both get stuff for him. And this kind of grew, and they got big enough so that they could hire somebody to kind of coordinate this and to coordinate organizing volunteers and whatever. And they called it Beacon Hill Village. And they eventually incorporated it as a nonprofit organization, and they developed a manual, which you can buy for $385, and it tells you how to do it. And now there's 130 of these in the United States, probably another 250 that are in development. So what are the hallmarks? Number one, it's grassroots. These are organizations that are developed by older adults living in a particular area for older adults living in that area. They're self-governing. The members develop the organization. They figure out how they want it to be, what they want it to be. They're in charge of it. They govern it. They're the board of directors, etc. They hire helpers. And the main purpose is that people should be able to age in place and stay connected to one another and to their communities as they get older. So here's how it works. So you're a member of one of these villages. I'll tell you in a minute sort of how you become a member. But you're a member of one of these villages. You pay dues to become a member. There's something you want or need. You call or email the office. Sometimes it's a real office. Sometimes it's Charlie or Mary who has a cell phone that they carry around. And you call Charlie or Mary and they are the office. Whoever answers the phone does a little triage and says, well, what do you need? Well, my remote control on my television doesn't work. All right, again, or I can't get the computer turn on or turn off. Or it's getting harder to take the garbage out. Or my husband's just coming home from the hospital. Yeah, I know that, Mary. You know, we know that Charlie's in the hospital, and what can we do? So we need help with some meals or whatever. Or I used to play bridge. I haven't played bridge in a long time. Is there anybody else who wants to play bridge? I don't know. I know that so-and-so was asking about that the other day, and so-and-so. Let me talk to a couple other people and maybe we'll put together a little bridge group. Or, haven't been to the movie or the theater or whatever it is. So let's put together a group and we'll go do that. Or most of the calls, as we'll see, I need a ride. I need a ride to the doctor. I need a ride to the store. I need a ride to church. Okay. Usually, that service is met by a volunteer. We have a whole cadre of volunteers. Some of them are village members. Some of them are other people who live in the local community, and call them up. One of them comes in, does what you need. Sometimes it's a service that we don't provide. It's home care or somebody to patch your ceiling or whatever. But you know what? We have an arrangement with Joe the plumber or Mary the painter or whoever, or Aunt Ann's home care service. And, we've had great experience with them. Can't recommend them, because we don't want to take the liability, but we've had great experience. Our members say that they've done a good job. And they've agreed for our members to give you a 20% discount. So there's a couple of places you can call. Okay? And we're going to call you back in a couple of days to find out whether this worked out or not, because we need to know whether Aunt Ann's home care is really doing what they say that they do. All right. And then there's events and things you can sign up for, a lot of social activities and gatherings and all that. Sometimes you need somebody to help you figure all this out, to kind of do some care coordination or care management. Sometimes all you need is a name or somebody to show up at your door. Anyway, okay. So that's basically how it works. As I said, they're all over the United States, mostly on the East Coast, some on the West Coast. Now, you're going to have to help me with this. I don't know of any of these that are in Canada, but it's very possible that there are some things that are very similar in Canada, and maybe during the question and answer you can tell me about that a little bit. There's some in Holland. There's some that are being developed in Australia. There's actually a group in Sweden that's developing these, and there's a group in Hong Kong that's developing some. We have an ongoing project now, a number of years, where we're looking at these villages. We're very interested in the concept. How viable is it? Can you essentially take a group of folks like you and me, get together and create a viable organization where we're really going to make it possible for one another to age in community, to age in our own homes and apartments, and to do it with this sense of connection and fulfillment that is really crucial. We're looking at these villages nationally. We're looking at sort of the development and what helps them development, what some of the challenges are, what some of the best practices are. We're following a group of village members over time to see how their well-being, social well-being, physical well-being, etc., change over time. We're looking at a variety of factors associated with that. The things that villages provide that we're looking at, sense of social engagement, social activities, being involved, and having the transportation to overcome those kind of physical barriers to get involved. Having help when we need it, assistance, support, sometimes just companionship, sometimes very concrete things like help with money management or bookkeeping, that kind of thing, housekeeping. Having help with wellness activities, things that health promotion. There's a project that we're going to be doing now looking at a brain fitness program where we're looking at groups of older adults who are implementing a brain fitness program, and we're going to see whether that improves their mental well-being, and we're going to see whether doing that in a group atmosphere where it's a social network that's all doing it together, whether that enhances the effectiveness. And then opportunities to volunteer, to participate in governance, to really be an important contributor, to have a role to play, even in retirement, as it were. And we want to look at ways in which those contribute to the sense of aging in community. Looking at villages in the United States, I won't go through too much of the details, but they're pretty new. Half of them have been formed in the last 3 years. They're pretty, where they're located is pretty representative of where seniors in the United States are located. And the average village has about 100 members, but tremendous variation. There's some that are very small and they're just growing, some that are really quite large. They probably max out at about 550. Beyond that, it just gets hard to really call it a network or a community. And even the ones that are very large have local, what they call neighborhood circles, or local groups that are formed that are interest groups or geographic neighborhood groups that provide that sense of connection and community. The average cost is about US $400 and some odd a year, with substantial variation. About half of villages offer some kind of subsidized membership for people who can't afford the full cost of $35 a month or so. And that's for an individual. For a household, it's almost $600 a year, about $50 a month. Looking at membership, villages are more likely to be village members more likely to be women than typical in the United States. They're much more likely to live alone. Not surprisingly, they're somewhat more likely to be white and less likely to be African American, Hispanic, or Asian American, or Pacific Islanders, or Native Americans. And they're in somewhat better economic shape than the average older adult in the United States. We can talk more about some of these issues later if you want. Villages operate on the average on about $80,000 a year, or about $1,000 per member. That doesn't divide quite right, but anyway, between $80,000 and $100,000 a year. Half of the budgets, half of their operating expenses come from their membership fees. But the other half come from a combination of donations, grants, contributions, and very, very little government support in the United States. Very, very little government support. And one of the things about this whole village concept is it seems to fill a gap that exists as we get older because of a reduction in government support, a reduction in the availability of families, particularly families living nearby, and a increased mobility, geographic mobility, where people don't, for the most part, live out their entire lives in the same neighborhood. There's exceptions, but most people in the United States now don't. And so you don't have these kind of long-term, lifelong relationships that really are sustaining. And so that's the kind of niche that's filled by this model. The service that's used most often is transportation, secondly, recreation, social activities, cultural, educational activities, one-to-one, friendly visiting and companionship, and grocery shopping, just phone calls to how you doing, how are you, everything okay. And then there's all these programs where when you go to the doctor, somebody will go with you. So that if you've got some problem, the doctor's telling you all this stuff, there's somebody there who listens with you and for you, who takes notes so you don't have to, who is easier, something that a friend might do or a family member might do. Interestingly here, services are mostly provided by volunteers, by other members and volunteers, and less so by paid staff or referral to outside providers. And that's the idea. It's about building a support network where people help one another, building that sense of community. So I'll go pretty quickly through just some of our findings, just to give you a flavor, and I think we can make the slides available if people are interested. When we look at the kind of engagement that members have with one another, nearly half of members talk to other members at least weekly. About 20% see other members at least weekly. Almost half of the members are involved in volunteering and helping one another or helping the village to run in one way administratively, doing all that back office kind of work. When we look at the impacts, these are self-reported impacts, and as I say, we're following a group of people over time. We'll have better data. About half of the village members report improved quality of life because of their participation in the village. Almost half are happier, and about a third say that they're healthier as a result of their participation in the village. Vast majority of people say they know more people, they talk to more people, they feel more connected. About half say they participate more in social activities and other kinds of community activities, and some of them leave home more, less lonely, etc. They're more able to get help. They know whom to call when they need assistance. They're more able to age at home, to stay in their own home as they get older. They're more able to, in some cases, take care of their home, to take care of themselves as they get older. In addition, even though the focus is on this helping one another in the village, villages also get involved in their larger communities because they realize that the ability of their members to age in place requires changes in the environment, in the larger environment. Things like putting in a park bench or slowing down the crosswalk or changing the attitudes that people have in this community about aging, about older adults. And so more than a third of villages are engaged in some kind of advocacy work, some kind of work designed to make their whole communities more aging friendly. So, villages are designed to promote aging in place and ultimately aging in community by improving access to services, by building a sense of community, by enhancing a sense of connection and community among us, and by promoting a sense of empowerment, a sense of engagement, involvement, a reason to get up in the morning, more of a sense of contribution in our lives, and ultimately more of a sense that we can age in place, that we can have what we want for ourselves and for our communities. So I'm going to stop there. Oh, almost stop there. I forgot I have a couple more slides. So we were talking yesterday about where you can move to. We're talking today about aging in place. I want to just share with you a few projects, a few programs that combine the two. And I find these really interesting. And I don't know if we have any of the retirement living, senior living kind of folks left from yesterday, but be interested in their thoughts about this. And these are projects that I've been involved in one way or another, and I'll share with you. In Los Angeles, where there's about 500,000 people who have been involved in the industry, the film industry, television film industry, 500,000 retirees from the television and motion picture industry. 70 years ago, they created something called the Motion Picture and Television Home. It was and is a 70 acres on the outskirts of Los Angeles, where if you've paid enough dues in terms of time in the motion picture and television industry, and as you're older, you can go move there. And they've been doing that for, say 70 years, in a lovely campus, et cetera, et cetera. Over the last 10 years, they've done something really interesting, which is they've also created a whole bunch of community programs, including community health centers, geriatric assessment programs, a number you can call, where anybody who's been in this industry can call and get advice about aging, about services, et cetera. And in 6 communities where the vast majority of people in this industry, older adults, live, retirees live. It happens to be 6 areas where there used to be, and in some cases still are, major motion picture studios. They've developed local community councils where they've gotten together and organized retirees who've been in this industry who get together, they share old war stories, and they design new programs, new activities, new things for one another and with one another. So very interesting. A similar, wrong button, sorry. A a kind of another model, another is in Northern California, near where I live. There's an organization called Eschaton, and this is a residential care provider. They've got a whole bunch of senior housing facilities, continuing care retirement communities, places where you can move in and you can stay there the rest of your life, most of them. They're residential places, and they spent most of their history trying to get people to move to these places. 3 years ago, they started something called Live Well at Home, Eschaton Village. And their village, like the village I've been talking about, ain't a place. It's a program designed to help people stay out of the retirement communities that they've spent the last 20 years trying to get people to move into. And they offer home care and adult day care and transportation services, but mostly what they offer is a village, just like the village I've been talking about, a virtual community, a social support community, where you call somebody if you need help, where they have social activities and the like. They also have a smart home that they've designed that you can go visit, etc., that shows you how to modify your own home to make it a better place to live using technology and other minor kinds of easy kind of modifications. And the third example, which is really my favorite, is Navigage. Navigage. Even the name, something about navigating and age, Navigage. So for years, they've had a CCRC, a community care retirement community in the outskirts of Los Angeles, called Marguerite Gardens. And Marguerite Gardens is lovely. I should have probably shown you a picture. But it's this nice kind of low-rise, two-level buildings, kind of typical Southern California with palm trees and, vegetation and painted kind of this light kind of tan color, with red shingle roofing and red tile roofing. And very, very lovely, very Southern California. A year ago, they created Sherpa Life. And I encourage you, if anybody's interested, to go online. Don't do it now, because I want you to listen to me. But to go, if you were my students, you'd all be, you'd know more about it in 1 minute than I know just. Sherpa Life. Sherpa Life. For $79 a year, you become a member, and what you get is nothing. Or nothing you can hold or touch. What you get is access to a website. And on that website, and you also get access to a telephone, because some of us are old-fashioned, or cell phone, whatever. Some of us are old-fashioned to actually want to talk to somebody. But what you get is, you get a concierge. You get like the concierge in your hotel, where there's something you need, something you want to find out how to get this done or that done, how to get, something painted, or where the next opera is, or whatever. You call or text or email this concierge, and they help you out. They organize different activities. They find out what are the people who live in a particular area, what do they want, what are they interested in, and they organize those activities. They have products that they sell, products that are designed to help you modify your home, or help you not just modify your home, but go on the great adventure. Go on a tour of Antarctica. I don't suppose you want to go on a tour of the Arctic, but anyway, go, do a trip across Trans-Canada, whatever. And they do life planning. You have a consultant who you can talk to about what's next in my life. What am I going to do? I've spent, 30 years doing this. I don't have to do that anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. But I don't want to just sit there twiddling my thumbs. What can I do? So $79 a year, you become a member of Sherpa Life. What does that have to do with a continuing care retirement community? What they say is it's all about helping people to live their lives as fully as possible, wherever they are. For some people, that's a dedicated senior living environment. For some people, it's where they physically are now, and how do we build a life around that? So the world is changing, the lines are blurring. what I think is most critical is that we create the options that allow us to have the kind of lives that we want as we live throughout our entire lives, and especially as we get older. How do we do that? I'll borrow a line from Peter Drucker. The best way to predict the future is to invent it. So kudos to all of you for being here today and being part of this discussion of how do we create and invent the next phase, both for our own lives and for our communities. Thank you.
I'm going to follow up on a concept that Chuck Durrett had last night. Way back in my younger days, I was involved in education reform for our provincial government. And we were looking at what the future held for students of the future. And we actually were collaborating with a professor from Berkeley and Joe Murphy from Peabody College in Vanderbilt. One of the things we took a look at was a groundbreaking book called Raising Self-Reliant Kids in a Self-Indulgent Age. He came up, the author, I'm old now, 68, and I don't remember names as well, but he came up and collaborated with our Drug and Alcohol Foundation and Education, and his theory was pre-World War II, North America was primarily rural. After World War II, we started to move to urban. And he said pre-World War II, I was a farm kid, born in Oregon, that kids were needed. And I know, I worked as a kid. Today, they're not needed anymore. And their achievement rates have gone down, and things like alcohol and drug problems have manifested as they look to fill their lives. So what strikes me is we have the two bookends that are forgotten: children and people who are aging. And if we really want the village, what Chuck said is right. It has to be intergenerational and everyone contributing. So I just wanted your thoughts. I notice you're nodding.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a really. I think if I may, I think there's 2 points that I take away from that. First of all, thanks for the reminder about the book, and I need to have my children read it. The two thoughts are that age alone does not absolve us of responsibility. There's nothing particularly glamorous about living out a quarter or more of our lives sitting around with nothing to do or filling time. It's nice, but I don't know that we can afford to do that either as individuals or as a world, honestly. Now, the question of intergenerational. I agree. In my world, we wouldn't need this. In my world, we'd have what Chuck Durrett was talking about in terms of co-housing, not separate from where we live, but where we live. We'd get together with our neighbors and we'd say, you know, we're in this together and we're going to live and die together. And that means we have some responsibility for each other. And that means when you're sick and need somebody to take out your garbage or bring in your newspaper or cook you a meal, I need to know about that.
It's so serious. And just another one on research. A groundbreaking book in the United States was the Massey Lectures of 1993, which I have. I don't remember the author. She was a University of Chicago political science professor. Her theory was democracy on trial. Her theory was that democracy could fail in the United States for one reason. We've gone from being communities where people knew each other, participated, and contributed to isolating, individualizing, and becoming selfish and demanding of government. She says, wherever you can, and it's person by person, reclaim the
So the comment was a book, Democracy on Trial, that talks about how the idea of democracy in the United States can fail if people don't take a sense of responsibility and don't have the sense of connection with one another that really is fundamental to the idea of democracy. And that it means really reclaiming a sense of connection, a sense of village. So, yeah, thank you.
Hi, my name is Sharon Cohen. I'm on faculty with the Department of Gerontology here at Simon Fraser University, and my area of specialty is ethno-cultural minority older adults. Just to put in context the work I do with aging. I'm really fascinated by these discussions over the last couple of days. I love a lot of these models, but I find that living as somebody who is, now entering my 50s in Vancouver with a group of friends who are between 40 and 50, that there's a bit of a mismatch between what we're talking about, which really centers on the notion of private ownership, whether it be co-housing or the village concept, it is not really matching my reality. The majority of my friends are not low income. They are like me, profs or, doing some kind of professional thing. They're not terribly high income, though, either. And Vancouver is a remarkably expensive city to live in. So for those of us who feel that there's... the suburbs don't work for us because we want walking communities, right? We don't like to drive very much. We want everything. We want that sense of community and neighborhood and all of that. So the vast majority of my friends choose, rather than living in the suburbs, which is all we could afford if we were to buy, we choose to rent in relatively urban areas. I live in Kitsilano. I live in a co-op. So the other piece of this, too, is that I was really struck with the stats. When you were talking about the village, I noticed that you mentioned that the 94% of the people living there were white. Mm-hmm. That is not the reality of Vancouver. Mm-hmm. We're incredibly diverse in many, many ways, both in terms of income and ethnic origin and recency of immigration and the way that people immigrate. So I just wanted to throw out the example. I live in a housing co-op of 20 people. In that co-op, there are 2 families of refugees. There are people from El Salvador, the Czech Republic, China. I lose track. We're very culturally diverse. There is a family of 2 engineers. There's a physician. There are 2 PhDs. And then there are people who need subsidy, which is capped in a co-op. Only a few people are eligible for subsidy. And so they are low income. And there are also 25% of our suites are people now over 65, many of them still working. But, we have somebody who is approaching 100. One of the things that strikes me in my co-op, I went home yesterday, and the second I got home, I had 3 co-op things to deal with. So we do help each other tremendously. But it's not all the utopian ideal either that I've been hearing here. We all help our friends, we get together, we decide we want to do something. That sounds really nice. But, I forgot to mention we have 5 suites modified for people with disabilities. So we also have people in wheelchairs and so on. So, as much as we do try to work together, that remarkable diversity and difference of interest, which would be present, I believe, in any community of seniors, creates for a lot of not necessarily conflict, but difference of direction and inertia. Only 25% of the people in our building, at most, really make it run, because that's what we're supposed to do, right? We run it. So I'm just sort of feeling a little at odds with the discussions we're having and all these wonderful models, because it all seems a little bit utopian. We all own homes and there's no diversity to deal with.
Okay. So thank you for bringing up those points. So let me say a few things. We've been studying this model and similar models, or other models, for a number of years now. If it was all utopia, we wouldn't be spending all this time and energy looking at all the challenges and how they're dealing with the challenges. I think it's about options and having the kind of environments and supports and opportunities that allow us to live well throughout our lives, and particularly as we get older. For some people, it's living in a co-op environment. For some people, it's staying connected with their existing networks. Some people many people don't need to create a social network the way the people on Beacon Hill did, because they have that, whether through family, extended family, through friends, as part of a community of interest or a community of culture, broadly defined, through their church. One of the projects that we're doing is interesting is looking at how to help churches and other existing institutions that bring people together to enhance their capacity to make sure that they're able to include fully all people who are members, who want to participate, regardless of age, regardless of disability, and to do it in a way that really supports positive aging and aging well. There's a colleague of mine at the University of Washington who's doing a project in northwest Alaska, a very rural part of Alaska, in a native community, looking at something like the village model. And they say, well, why do they need the village model? These are people who, most of whom, have been born and grew up in that community. But there's resource limitations, and there's the lack of clear organization. So it's taking what they already have and the social capital and the social structure and the sense of community they already have and building upon it. So this is a concept. It's not a place. It's not even a thing. It's a concept. It's a concept that has to do with community members getting together and creating a social entity that is there for them and that promotes their support and quality of life. I think the concept is something that I'm very attracted to because of the ways in which it sort of goes against cultures that are ageist, that see older adults only as service recipients or takers or only as people out on the golf course or cruise or whatever. So how that concept gets played out is going to be very different for different people in different settings. You don't have to own your own home. You can live in an apartment. Lots of different ways to do this. Some people are living in settings, co-ops and the like, where they have this. One of the ideas behind the village, one of the reasons why people pay dues, is so they can hire somebody to help coordinate things and to help do a lot of the stuff that people don't want to do for one another. But I appreciate the comment because the truth is that different things are needed and wanted by different people, and we really need to honor and respect that. And it's no accident that, I think, that if you create a club that's made up primarily of white middle-class folks who don't have as strong family connections, who are more likely to live alone, etc., and then you start inviting folks who look a little different or from a different background, they take one look and go, not my club. I'm going to go create my own club. And so the big growth now is creating different types of villages in different communities. Anyway. We're all hard to please. We're all hard to please. In Vancouver, indeed. All right. Good.
Hi, my name is Linda Weiss. I live in a housing co-op in downtown Vancouver, not downtown Vancouver, Mount Pleasant, and I'm on the board of the Co-op Housing Federation of BC. And so we have a naturally occurring community in our co-op, for sure. But one thing that we've been talking about at the Federation and that have been inspired here is to get involved with more of our neighborhood to build some community there, because we're fairly isolated in our, and we've been there, the co-op's been there for 35 years. So this has been very inspiring for me. And as the whole conference has been, with just all the alternatives, and I've just recently retired, and all these are questions for me and options. But my question is, the cost of membership was around $500 a month.
No, a year.
Oh, a year. Okay, sorry, a year, and about 100 members and $50,000 a year. What is that used for?
Oh, so what's that is used for is to hire somebody who is the person that you call when you need help, who organizes everything, who goes and recruits additional volunteers from the community. It's sort of, it's what I'm training my social work students to do and be.
Great. Okay, because I was kind of thinking it was all volunteers, but I see what you mean to have someone to organize it. Great. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Hello, my name is ML Burke, and I'm with the Delta Seniors Planning Team. And I have a couple of comments. I used to be a manager of volunteers. So volunteers don't manage themselves, so you really do need staff.
Yeah.
And the other comment from the woman in the co-op about kind of the utopian feeling you've been getting, I think the difference between like co-housing and co-ops, one of the main differences is that they're intentional communities. The group comes together, they usually find common interests, so by the time you're moving in together, you know each other really well. And the ones who don't really fit with the group filter themselves out. So it's not like just moving into a co-op where you're basically having to get to know each other and get along. So it's a little different that way. I just wanted to check out what I learned last year, and that when I went down to Arizona, somebody said, you guys in Canada are so lucky because your government pays for senior centers, and we don't have that here. And I thought, wow, really? I mean, I know you have lots of sports things and recreation centers, but do you have senior centers?
So in the United States, there are about 4,000 senior centers, and they are primarily funded by federal dollars. It doesn't really matter, Title IV, the Older Americans Act, but Title III. But yeah, primarily funded by federal dollars. One of the few things that are funded by federal dollars, but they also have to raise local money as well. But yeah.
And what do they offer the seniors there? Is it recreation and health and?
It's recreation, social health promotion, and many senior centers offer hot meals as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, my name is Clemencia Gomez, and I am the executive director of the South Granville Senior Center.
Hi.
And yes, a good comment. But first, I have a question and a curiosity. What is the ethnicity of the volunteers? I think it is important to know that. For my experience, I think many people from other countries, they have more. They come from a country where part of the culture is community, and I want to know what is the ethnicity. And also, I feel that model is, I have a micro model for a village in my senior center. Yeah. We provide all kinds of programs that you mentioned there. Yeah. Information, recreational, socialization. We engage 85 permanent volunteers. It's like a factory there every day. Everybody's working. And it's seniors, all of seniors. So it's a model that is beautiful. I love the village model, but I feel that I have that model in my senior center. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you. So I'm going to take this in reverse order. Look, in my fantasy world, you don't need to create your own village because our existing social institutions create that sense of ownership, that sense of involvement. They create the sense that you are part of something and contributing to something as well as receiving. Unfortunately, most senior centers that I've visited are wonderful, beautiful places, but they're clearly somebody else's place. The people who, and not your senior center, but the people who participate are going to somebody else's party. It's being held for them, and they go and they enjoy it and whatever, but it's not their party. And one of the things about the village concept, which could be done for a senior center as well, is that, like co-housing, it's created by the people who are using it, to their needs, to their preferences, to their style, etc. Now, in my mind, every social institution or organization would be that way. But the reality is things get bureaucratized and they kind of lose that sense of real ownership. And so there's lots of older adults, many of them in their 80s and 90s, at least in the United States, who say, I would never go to that senior center. There's all those old people there. Or because I did a lot of work in a Latino community in the San Francisco Bay Area, or even though the senior center was a mile away and people could easily get there, people didn't use it because they walked in the door and it didn't feel like home, or it didn't feel like their home. It felt like somebody else's home. And so, back to the first comment about who the helpers are, and who the helpers in these villages are mostly people who look like the village members, sometimes younger, but same community, same Latino community. We did a project, we ended up doing it by accident, but it doesn't matter, where young women, young mothers, whose children were in the local preschool, had a couple hours in the morning, and we organized them to basically go door to door in their neighborhoods and visit the elders, the older adults, to find out where the older adults lived on their block, and to visit them and to learn from them, etc. But something strange happened. What happened was, and this is the last thing because we're running out of time, I'll say, I'm expired. Thank you. Not quite yet. Although I have a colleague who says that now with modern technology, I'm going to be continuing to lecture long after I'm dead. But final thought. So these women were really just supposed to go door to door and interview these seniors and do a needs assessment. But something really strange happened. They would visit people in their neighborhood, people on their block, and they'd talk to Mrs. Sanchez, and Mrs. Sanchez hadn't eaten a decent meal because her kids were working full-time, et cetera, et cetera. So the young mom would go in and see what's in the refrigerator and cook up a meal. Or Mr. Martinez looked in the refrigerator, nothing there. So she'd go to the market and buy a bunch of stuff for Mr. Martinez. Or Mrs. Hernandez. Her kids, so busy, and grandchildren, whatever, nobody visits her. Well, on Sundays after church, I come over and bring my own kids, and we kind of adopt Mrs. Hernandez, and she's like part of our family. Because how could I, now that I know that she's there, how could I not do that? Now that I've talked to her, I have a relationship with her, and with that relationship comes responsibility. So how could I not then try and do something to help her? That's what community is about. And that's what whether it's this village concept or whatever, that's what I want to leave you with. That question of how do we create in our lives that sense of community and connection throughout our lives, wherever we are. Thank you.